Today we're going to be building a jug head or a face vase, whatever you'd like to call it. You can look them up on the internet. There are a lot of different and varied histories, some of them going back 100 or so years, some of them going back 200, some of them going back a couple thousand years. It's sort of up to you to be the adjudicator on this. There are many varied cultures that have built vases that look like heads. I'm going to start with some simple tools here, and I'm making a 5-inch circle for the base of the jug that I'm going to make. And then I'm going to roll out the side, and I know that if I have a 5-inch circle I'm going to need over 15 inches long, so this 12-inch board is going to become longer as I put two of them together. And I want to roll this out into a nice, relatively even slab if I can, and get it long enough to go around that base so that I can put it basically on top of it and use the flat bottom to then attach a coil foot. You may have noticed that every joint on here is being scored and slipped together. That's a point that I like to make in all of my videos. The only way to assure that things will stay together is to score and slip. You can score and maybe it will stay together, small chance. You can slip, a little bit better chance of putting it together and keeping it together. Or you can score and slip and you have a great chance of keeping everything together. Now I want to share with you my basic plan for how I'm going to put this together. I've already made the slab on the bottom and the slab on the side, and now I'm going to roll this around, round it out just a little bit, make sure that everything's connected, and then I want to put a coil on the bottom. So if you're looking down there at the bottom, there's a coil for a foot. I'm going to roll that out, and I'm going to attach it to the bottom by scoring and slipping. You may also notice that I'm sizing it with the top just to try to get the size correct, scoring and slipping the entire coil into a ring before I score the whole thing. I score the bottom where it's going to connect. I make sure that there's slip on both sides of that joint, so on the bottom of the pot and on the coil itself, and then I'm going to put it on the bottom, and I'm going to smooth it out a bit using a stick because my finger is a little too pliable for this surface. Again, I would like to refer to my basic diagram. You'll notice there's a pinch pot that goes on top of this, so I'm going to put that on top. To do that, I will need a ball of clay, and then I'm going to need to make a pinch pot about the right size to go on top. It will take a little while, so bear with me as I speed the video up even more. You may notice that I keep sizing the pinch pot, trying to find if it's going to be about the right size, and when I do get near that size, then I'm going to trim it up and smooth it out, make it look a lot prettier than it was. Once I get everything fitting together nice and neatly, I'm going to score and slip it in place on top, making a dome over the top of the cylinder. I'm going to also score a bit around the edge, get it rough, and then smooth it out so that it has no seam that I can actually see. It's difficult, but it's worth it to get it nice and smooth at this point. Next, you're going to see me find the center of the top and then cut a hole there so that I can put a neck on it like a bottle. Once again, I will refer to my original diagram, and you'll notice that at the top the neck is a slab that goes around like a cylinder. And so I need to cut a slab to size. I need to make it go around like a cylinder, score and slip it together, and then score and slip it in place on top of the opening to make a neck like it's a bottle. I'm going to round that opening as well with a wheel turn cone just to make sure that it's nice and round. Then I decided I wanted to put a pour spout on it. So I'm going to use my fingers to pinch out a pour spout on the side, get it nice and neat and smooth. I'm using the stick occasionally because my fingers aren't always stiff enough. And then I need a little bit more reinforcement. So to reinforce the neck, I put an extra coil around it and then scored and slipped it in place and then blended it in to get it just a little thicker in that area. So here I have my jug. Eventually I'm going to put some handles on the side, but I'll save that for later. Here I have my diagram again. Notice on the left there are some shapes of the face. I'm going to start building a face. I have a picture of William Shakespeare here as a reference, although the end result may not look like William Shakespeare. That's where I'm going to start. I'm going to look at his nose. And you'll notice that I'm working on the seam side of the barrel that makes the base of the jug, and I'm going to put the nose there to sort of reinforce that area because that's going to be the weakest joint on there. Normally I would put a handle there to try to reinforce that, but since I'm going to have two handles, why spread the love around on one side or the other? When I've got a nose, it's going to do the whole thing for me. So to build this nose, I'm building basically a sort of a long skinny triangle, getting a little bit of a crook to it, and then I'm going to put a couple of balls of clay on it, on the tip and on the sides, just to get it sort of rounded out, looking sort of nose-like, but very geometric to start with. Then I'm going to score in everything in place, score and slip, and then I'm going to start carving that nose out of what remains. And once I have that nose sculpted, I'm going to score and slip it into place along that seam, going up into the forehead area to hold it all together in one nice cohesive piece. To score it and slip it, then I need to make sure the slip is along the score marks both on the nose section and on the jug. And I'm going to put in some reinforcements on the sides, scoring and slipping them into place before blending them in. And you'll see that I'm blending the nose here. It ended up a little larger than I actually anticipated for the face, so this Shakespeare will have a very big, sort of hawk-like nose even. If I had decided that I didn't like the nose at all, I could just scrape it off. I don't have to start over with the entire jug. I can just start over with the nose or carve pieces off of it. Either way, it would work very nicely. This is one of those cases where it is appropriate to pick your nose. You can see now here where I'm building up and smoothing out the brow ridge. Once again, I'm using wooden tools to give a little bit more even pressure across the surface. This will give me a place where I can put the eyes below and they won't look like they're popping out of the head so much. I'm also going to end up building up some of the forehead and probably the cheeks as well. When building up that forehead, I'm going to make a small slab, relatively symmetrical, and I'm going to put it where the forehead would be, scoring and slipping it in place first and then blending it in so it juts out a little bit more. It's just important that I don't make the sides of the jug more than an inch thick. But other than the nose, nothing really juts out that far. Some eyes in there, so I'm going to make some oval shapes and I'm going to score and slip them in place as sort of the eyeball. I'm going to put lids over that eventually so it looks a little bit more realistic, but for now I'm just going to put these ovals in place so that they bulge out just a little bit from the surface. Then I'm going to make a couple of circles and smush them into round pancake shapes to make the irises of the eyes, and I'm going to score and slip those on top of those ovals that I put in place. And it will look a little bit more lifelike once I take a tool and dab a circle in the center for the pupil. And then I'm going to apply the lids. They're basically coils that I flattened out into little slabs. First the upper and then the lower. Doesn't matter which order, as long as they sort of make an almond shape, covering up some of that iris. Because if you don't cover some of the iris, you look surprised or crazy. And I don't want this to look crazy. Maybe a little crazy, but not too crazy. And once I get the eyelids on there, I realize that the bottom is sort of bulging out, and I probably want to build up some cheeks. So once again, I'm going to make some slabs, and I'm going to put them in place next to the nose and across the lower eyelid, just to give a little bit of a high cheekbone definition to this face. I seem to have run out of space on the bottom to put in a full mouth, so I'm going to have to worry about that later. It's all because I made the nose a bit big. So when I do decide to put the lips in, I'm going to make a couple of coils. The top one is a little bit longer than the lower one, and I'm going to try and bend it into the shape of Shakespeare's lips, and it's got sort of a Cupid's bow in the middle. I'll build that up separately underneath the nose, connect them all together, and then cover some of it with a mustache and facial hair so you don't see a whole lot of the detail underneath, just what I want you to see on top. Once again, let's refer to those planes of the face. You can see each of the parts that I've put in here, except cheekbones and the forehead I sort of put in on the fly. And once we have all this together, then we'll start looking at the other aspects of the face. Possibly the ears, which I didn't represent in that diagram. They would make great handles, I think. Here you can see me putting in some masses for hair. I've already put in a couple of long teardrop shapes for the mustache, and now I'm putting in the beard sideburns that are coming down on Shakespeare's face. I'm not going to make it all the way to his chin, so I'm just going to sort of try to do this symmetrically on each side, putting in a coil that has been flattened into a long slab as I go down the side of the face to get that sort of beard-like section on there. You can see that there. I haven't put any texture in it, but I am going to stick those ears on now. You can see that the ears are going to be handles, and they're made from single coils that have been smoothed out, each one relatively symmetrical. I'm going to attach them, and I'm going to reinforce them with other clay that I've scored and slipped in place. So they get scored and slipped on, and then coils get pushed around the ends and scored and slipped, so that they're very tight and very strong. Anytime that you build a vessel that's meant to hold something, especially liquid, you're going to have to realize it's going to be very heavy when full. And to trust those handles, they have to have incredible strength with something this size. I'm going to finish out this jug, at least this part, with hair, and to do that I want to put masses on here that are going to represent the different parts of the hair. So the hair going up the sides of Shakespeare's face to the balding head, I'm going to use some slabs, and then coil after coil after coil, like the really, really thick hairs. I'm going to build up the masses of whatever seems to be coiling down the back of his head. You can see that I'm building it up. Eventually, I use a scoring tool to put long, sinuous lines like hair to make texture across the top. And you can see on this that I've used alphabet pasta at the top as well to put a Shakespeare quote from Midsummer Night's Dream. You also may notice the decorative earring, and that I've stained it not with an underglaze, but this is an actual stain that goes into the greenware that I'm going to then fire in place before I put a clear glaze on top. So now I'm throwing the ball back in your court. Time for you to make your own jug head.